October 2019, we visited some of our Mid-Murray communities. We talked to people about the impacts of mental health, how that's affected them, their families and the general community. One thing that really shone through is that everyone is really ready to mobilise this issue. For the past decade, mental health has affected our community immensely, and we have volunteers, community members, health professionals, educators all ready to work on this one simple issue.
The sad part of it all is that we still have to be based in Murray Bridge, because it was the only place we could get support at the beginning. The people that I know in Mannum or further north of Mannum, they don't come to the Silent Ripples meetings because it's too far to go. You've got someone to travel from Sudan, where we've had a number of suicides, to travel to Murray Bridge. That's over an hour drive.
We struggle with drought with the farmers. When they're struggling, they tend to not bring their children in to involve themselves in the community. I also find is a little bit of a drug issue, which we are trying to alleviate in our community. People tend to head that direction, either drugs or alcohol, if they're struggling.
Kids who are facing more trauma than ever before, they're facing second, third generation cycles of poverty.
Like parents stressing about stuff can end up going through the children, and they're worried about situations that their parents are in.
I think our isolation, lack of service in our big vast area of Mid-Murray itself is a big challenge to bring people together, keep them active.
Sort of going into their second, third year of drought, just sort of struggling financially, worried where the next load of hay and grain is coming from, and otherwise most of the blokes or families don't go out. They just sit home, they brood around.
Farming families here have been in drought for 3 years now. The of losing their farms. We don't have many services come to Truro at all. We have to travel to those services.
In rural areas, we face so many challenges that are not faced by our city counterparts. They have challenges around their work and parenting and life in general. We have that out here, but we also have added to it isolation, high suicide rate, a bit more of a blokey kind of culture, macho culture for men in particular. Being behind the back foot in some ways, not having services come out to you, having to chase down services, having to drive an hour to go to a decent sized supermarket.
We started because I lost my son to suicide 12 and a half years ago. Found that there were no support services. With sort of seeing doctors and counsellors and people like that, you kind of get to a point where you just want to talk to somebody else who's been through the same kind of trauma.
Especially our netball club, we find kids who parents perhaps are struggling, they take a little bit of time to fit in with teamwork. But once they become part of a team, then personality changes. They become a lot more confident. They like to include themselves. They put themselves out to help in our canteen or umpiring. Mannum, I feel, has really struggled in recent times to provide enough facilities for both our adults and our children. We seem to miss out a little bit by providing to a lot of the other communities.
The school is very much the centre of the community, particularly those with the libraries connected as well. So it is about being proactive and engaging the community, because our parents and carers are the number one educators. It's the school doing the support, particularly the smaller areas. And the teachers and support staff, we're not social workers, we're not trained social workers, but we're being lent on more and more. We take it really seriously.
This school's very different from my old school. It had the resources, but it didn't push the topic. They never mentioned you could speak out about it. When I first came out here, I struggled with a lot. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know where to turn to. And talking to people helped me. I feel very supported out here. Even with a small amount of people, I feel like I can talk to anyone.
We talk to our blokes at clients a fair bit, but probably not enough. Usually pick up who's going all right and who's not. When you're on committees and all that sort of thing, plus working full time, most of my holidays are taken up. I do get away for a few days Christmas time, but this year earlier I was just struggling a little bit mid-year, so I just went away for 3 days on my own, and that was probably the best thing I ever did.
Parents now have their own mental health issues. Within a school, we're having to support parents as well as students.
Personally, I have been helped enormously by attending playgroup. I suffered from postnatal depression myself. My family are interstate, and when I was a first-time mum, it was very daunting and I was very isolated.
We've got a memorial garden in Murray Bridge. It's a really nice place where people can sit, and it's a place for reflection. It's a place where we hold a service each year so that people can remember the ones they've lost.
Encouraging people to get out, be active, because being active certainly creates better, positive mental health.
We Matter came about through a partnership decision around wellbeing, basically a 4-step initiative, engaging communities and parents, developing positive relationships. The end goal is around establishing school wellbeing programs, houses You Can Do It, and also on mental health intervention.
Nortnort is a conservation park in Nildotty where we help spread knowledge to any tourists in the area or any locals. So having my parents as the elders at Nortnort, it's very important for the younger generation and myself to get involved, as we can learn from them and gain the knowledge and pass it down to the further generation.
One of our strengths has been able to work with the community in our collective groups. We have Mid-Murray Family Connections, we had the Mid-Murray Suicide Support Group, we have the Mid-Murray Men's Shed, and we have Mannum Community Services people, and we have a wide variety of groups across our region.
Just with the job, it's good to get around and meet the people, see how they're travelling, and especially in these last couple of years, it's been hard times, and if they ask you for a coffee, sit down and have a coffee. There's ones that you know that are really struggling, you'll make the time, you'll sit down 15 or 20 minutes and just try and crack a joke, tell them the positives that are going out there.
Mid-Murray Mums Facebook group, that's been a good connecting tool. I sort of see myself as a bit of a role model, and I just like to be open and communicative with people and say, look, you can talk to me about anything.
That would just make life so much easier for so many people. It would be colossal. That if people can get the right kind of support that they're looking for right from the beginning, then they're going to deal with it all a lot better.
More funding could provide our community with better equipment to encourage people to commit to their community. People tend to put their hand up a bit more if there are more resources.
It just adds to the work of those who are already working in a passionate way, but it gives it extra funding to get out to these regional isolated areas on a sustainable timeline. I have found that there are so many more parents and students who are openly talking and discussing mental health.
So our upcoming plans for Nortnort is building that interpretive centre on top of the cliff, and that would help just put in information for Nortnort. Yeah, it is very important in building that relationship between Indigenous people and others.
I think it would be an amazing assistance to our community, would make our community more livable, more enjoyable for people there, would help us to activate the volunteers and give them more professional support. The more we can do to help, the better resource we are, the better resource they are, then the stronger community we have.
Talking definitely does help, even if it's not a counsellor, it's just a good friend.
Is getting service providers out here. We need bodies on ground and out to the outlining areas of Mid-Murray Council. Upskilling is huge within the schools, within the community, helping people to recognise what are the signs and symptoms.
Would strengthen what we already have in place, continue it, be able to sustain what we do, equipping community members to feel like they can stay positive mentally, but that they can help others in that way, and then in turn help the community in whatever way they choose.